June the 18th, 2024. As you're looking at a wide view of our planet, this is satellite images of the northern hemisphere of our side of Earth. I wanted to go with a wide view to start the video out because there's a couple things here. One, to your right here, guys, those storms are increasing in size and intensity that are coming off of Africa. Now, you've got a Saharan sand layer that you can kind of see here. I'm going to give you a different view in a minute. That's inhibiting some of the formation. But let me say this, even though we're having a wind pattern change from east to west, the Saharan sand layer is a lot less this year. Now, that's important because last year we watched them inhibit quite a few storms in the season. The dust layer would come across there off the African continent, and you mix water and that dust and you get kind of a muddy sand layer. Everything goes down. It's weighted and it goes into the ocean. And it takes that moisture, which is very important for hurricane development, out of the system and puts it back into the ocean. Anyway, we got that. And here, guys, in the north central section of the U.S., moving into Canada now, you have some pretty good storms right there. But the western section is fairly dry. That's not good news for you folks over in L.A. that's got those fires. We were looking at that video last night. We saw multiple ignition points for some reason, all happening at about the same time. Now, of course, we're here because of what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico. But before I zoom in, notice how the tropical convergence zone is feeding into this storm here. I think we're going to see record rains. And what they've done all along the Mexico and Texas coast all the way up into Louisiana, you had tropical storm watches. They changed all of that now to warnings. The main thing, I think, we may not get to a Cat 1, we may, but definitely tropical storm, is the amount of moisture. That's why I wanted to show you what's happening when you're dealing with this. Last year at this time, we were seeing hurricanes form off the west coast of Mexico and move up towards the Baja, and some would travel out towards the Hawaiian Islands. This year, everything's being pulled into right there. I think that's got to do with that tilt and the little bit of extra daylight that we're seeing now and the sun going down at a different angle. Now, you can't see all of that happening in this one, but remember where this moisture is coming from. It's coming out of the Pacific Ocean and pulling up in here. Not all of it. Some's Caribbean, some, it's over the Gulf. It's very warm. But it's trailing now all the way through the U.S. This is the southern tip of Lake Michigan, right in this area. And so the moisture's in place. Now with the tropical storm warnings, and you're going to have an increase in rainfall, higher tides, things like that, because the more energy you have there, all of those things go up. We're going to take a look at it. But right now the central section of the storm is right here in this area. They're still anticipating it to go into Mexico right here, but the brunt is already up here as far as the moisture. You've got it in this area, you've got it back here. But by the time the storm comes in through this area, this moisture will be up into this area, either going into Texas or Louisiana or some of the other Gulf states. Now, good close-up view of the Gulf. You can see what's going on here is that rotation that came off the Yucatan right in this area now. Again, the northern section has the most moisture, the rear section or the eastern section, and the south section. Although they're divided, it's not fully wrapped. But at the speed it's going now, it may have time to do that. One problem is right along this area, right here, is very dry. It's high pressure area, same thing offshore on this side. And that is inhibiting this from wrapping all the way around, and that's a positive thing because that's going to keep it from getting too strong. Now, guys, I'm going to split this screen a moment. I'm going to keep the satellite images on the top left, but here is the National Hurricane Center's information, National Weather Service. But everywhere you're seeing the darker maroon now, these are tropical storm warnings. No longer are they tropical storm watches. You've got all of this marine warnings around all the way up into South Carolina. The bright greens here, this is coastal flooding. That's what's they're expecting to happen. And these are flash flood watches, flash flood warnings here. Special tropical statements here in South southern tip of Florida, guys, and you can see for all our friends in Mexico. This is the U.S. Weather report and hurricane report. It wouldn't be a bad idea. I wish they would go ahead and include at least this section of Mexico and the Yucatan and all in the weather reports, but that's their deal. But here, you can tell from the warnings all the way out into the central Gulf now, you have these tropical storm warnings. So it's going to be coming in right about in this area. Everything's going to get thrown up into here. But Mexico, you're going to have to watch the rain also. I'm not downplaying that, but we all know where the strongest part of the storm is. If you look to the left, it's going to be in Texas. The thing comes in here, everything throws into the northeast quadrant. Now, let's read what we're dealing with. And let's read the reports coming out of Brownsville, Texas. And they're talking about from Laguna Madre, from the port of Brownsville to the Aurora, Colorado, Laguna Madre, from the Aurora, Colorado to 5 nautical miles north of Port Mansfield, Texas. And Gulf waters from Baffin Bay to Port Mansfield. Basically, the entire western section of the Gulf. It says east winds 30 to 40 knots with gusts up to 50 knots and seas 12 to 17 feet. Where portions of the Gulf of Mexico and the Laguna Madre. Wind, tropical storm force winds possible from late this evening until Wednesday evening. So all day tomorrow. Impacts, very strong winds will cause hazardous seas which could capsize or damage vessels and reduce visibility. Guys, you do not need to be on this water unless you're in major vessels, and 12 to 17 foot seas are nothing to play with. Forget the fishing trips. What you need to be doing is securing your boats, not getting them out in the water. Now let's take a look at the information coming out of Galveston. It says coastal waters from Freeport to Matagorda Ship Channel, Texas, out 20 nautical miles. Coastal waters from High Island to Freeport, Texas, out 20 nautical miles. And from Freeport to Matagorda Ship Channel from 20 to 60 nautical miles. From High Water Island to Freeport, Texas, from 20 to 60 nautical miles out. This came in at 10, which was 47 minutes ago, where portions of the Gulf through Thursday morning. So tonight, tomorrow night into Thursday morning, Texas. Strong winds will cause hazardous seas, which could capsize or damage vessels and reduce visibility. Mariners, and here we go, Texas. Mariners should alter plans to avoid these hazardous conditions, remain in port, seek safe harbor, alter course, and or secure the vessel for severe conditions. Now we're going to go to Miami. And it looks like this is a basic report that covers much of the Gulf of Mexico, especially the western half. It says seas given its significant wave height, which is the average height of the highest of 1/3 of the waves. Individual waves may be more than twice the significant wave height. I've been caught in these storms, guys, 2 days, 2 nights, 20-foot seas in a 36-foot sailboat. You don't want to go through that. We made it fine. The boat made it, but it was very hazardous. Let's just put it like that. It says today, north to northeast winds 25 to 30 knots, seas 9 to 14 feet in the east swell, scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Tonight, tropical storm conditions expected. North to northeast winds 30 to 35 knots, seas 10 to 15 feet. Scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Wednesday, tropical storm conditions expected. Northeast to east winds 35 to 40 knots, seas 12 to 18 feet. In the east to southeast swell, scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Wednesday night, tropical storm conditions continue. Southeast winds 40 to 45 knots, diminishing to 30 to 35 knots later. Seas 11 to 17 feet in southeast swells. Scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. It just goes on like this, guys, through Friday night. Look, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots, seas to 6 to 9 foot. You can tell it's going down. That's still dangerous conditions. You don't want to be out in these in any type of small craft. You need to be in a major boat to deal with this and make it through it okay. So Saturday, you're still dealing with seas 6 to 8 feet. So just from now throughout the weekend, we're going to have tropical storm conditions. What does that mean? That's a lot of rain, guys, if it continues. And what's it doing? It's pulling in moisture from the tropical convergence zone out of the Pacific Ocean. Now, this is the National Hurricane Center, not the National Weather Service that we've been looking at, as well as the COD radar. And all of the links in this video are on our website at bpearthwatch.com. As of 10 p.m. this morning, Central Daylight Time, that's 53 minutes ago as I'm doing this, we were at 35 knots, 45 mile per hour winds, minimum central pressure 999 millibars. Let me flip this tab over to give us an idea of their paths. Again, right here, this thing's going to linger. Like I said, we got tropical storm warnings going all the way through the week. And we got an eye on this system out here. It's a 20% chance of development. It's dry out there. It was 30% chance yesterday. If it makes it through that dry area, they're anticipating the cone. It's kind of centered at the Georgia-South Carolina border now. Yesterday it was moving and was going to move up and possibly come into North Carolina. You remember it? But we're still a few days out. Things could change. But again, this area of the Atlantic Ocean is very dry, and it's hard for anything to wrap itself in moisture. Now, these are the various spaghetti models. You've got the two that are the most accurate crossing right here at landfall, basically now. In this purple that you see making the sine wave right through there, that's the Canadian model. Excuse me, the Navy model. And Canadian model is the pale green model that's just under it, wrapping under right here, and goes all the way across Mexico, and right there it says CMC in the Gulf of California. So you've got all the models pretty much aligning into the impact area here, and that's why they're warning the rest of the Gulf about the next 4 days, basically, of this type weather. First, let's look at the Canadian model. And it's very accurate, especially in the last few days. Let's play this through. Coming in, second storm coming in there. In the previous videos, that second storm was coming up a little further north and lingering. Remember that? But the high pressure must not be retreating as much as they are anticipating if they're watching this. Anyway, it looks like you're going to get a double dose back to back. But look at the moisture still lined up here, guys, in the low pressure area. It's still going to be feeding in from the convergence zone in the Pacific and from the Caribbean. Now, let's take a look at the Canadian model. First storm is almost identical as far as where it comes in. The second section of this comes in a little further north, a little closer to the Texas-Mexico border. And that's going to throw everything just a little further to the east. Let's play it through. There's your first storm. Notice how wide that area is. It's not intense as far as speed and pressure, but it's very large. There's your second storm. Starts to drift north and then cuts back just below, I guess that's a Rio Grande there, and moisture continues. Notice the high pressure out here. They're not indicating much now except this little bump right there in the high pressure of the storm out in the Atlantic, and I think that's because, again, it's too dry. Now, the GFS model, it goes out to July the 4th. And again, I mentioned it at each video that this is good on the short-term runs, but because it goes so far out in its extended modeling, that we all know that changes. So it's not as accurate on the 4th as it will be in the next few days, for example. Let's let it go forward now. Very broad system pulling in here. Again, systems being pulled off that convergence zone out of the Pacific. That second storm was. There you go. Just continuing throughout. Now, this is showing a system breaking out, coming up through the Florida Panhandle. But that, again, that's going to be around, let's see, I'm going to stop it at that point. Here's your second system, again, feeding from the Pacific. Very strange weather indeed. Now, when we get right in here, this is June the 27th. So what are we dealing with? 8 or 9 days. They're looking at something forming here. I'll just step it forward. Through June 28th, something coming across, skirting up the Atlantic. But guys, again, that's too far out to be very accurate at all. But we'll be watching it because they are anticipating continued activity here. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.